Hello and welcome. I'm so pleased to be here today with Amy Squire, who's the Senior Manager of Enterprise Wellness at BMO and one of our Canadian Workplace Wellbeing Award winners. So, welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Louisa. So happy to be here.
Well, congratulations on winning the award this year. When I take a look at everything that you're doing at BMO, it really is a great example of what other large organizations could be doing. You have 50,000 employees. I would imagine that you have a team of people that work with you on wellness and well-being at BMO. Can you tell us more about your team?
Sure. Yeah, so for the organization, we're responsible for global well-being. And I always say that we're a small but mighty team, considering the size of our organization. So, for 55,000 plus people that are spread out primarily in North America, but globally, we have as I said, small but mighty team. And it's 3.5 people. So it's myself as the senior manager. It is two senior advisors on my team, Mateo Casio and Meg Wood. And then no one would probably believe me if I told them because his heart and passion for wellness is so large. But Vincent Kumar is actually only a zero point 0.5 resource to our team. He supports our leader, Jeff Scott, who has a broader portfolio, which is not only well being, but also benefits for North America and globally, and also retirement portfolio. So Jeff's portfolio is sort of part of the larger picture, and we roll up to the head of the department who oversees all of total rewards. So essentially, we're all into the total rewards, and so I like to think of that as wellness and what we offer in our program is part of your total rewards package. And so that's part of how we talk about the program and making sure people understand that this is something we've invested so greatly in as a company and trying to ensure that it's woven into the fabric of our culture so people feel supported in their overall well-being.
And I think that's so important. It's so good to hear that you're integrated with with that entire team globally. When you say you want to integrate it into the fabric of your culture, what are some of the things you actually do? Because we're seeing that organizations are at different levels in terms of implementing well-being. And what we've seen over the 5 years of running the Canadian Workplace Wellbeing Awards is that organizations started off with benefits and increasing benefits and running programs. But then they've kind of evolved into strategically thinking about well-being, psychological well-being specifically, and incorporating that into culture. What are some of the things that you do that embed this well-being into your culture at BMO?
Yes. So our well-being, our wellness program at BMO has been going through an evolution since 2020. So born sort of in the pandemic. So um, the first few years, I would say the first 3 years, we're really focused on building that foundation of the program. So making the larger investments. We already had most large companies have the EAP, Employee Assistance Program already, but making some significant investments in expanding our services in there to include things like backup childcare and elder care, virtual tutoring for children, and things like CBT, digital CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and then huge investments in things like Headspace, the mindfulness and meditation app, something that can sort of meet people where they're at in a digital way. And so the first few years, as I said, really focused on building the foundation, building the basics. And the last few years that we've really been focused on building this amplification program. So, how do we really get out there and talk to people about the program? And the more you hear about it, the more you talk about it, the more people are starting to sort of see the stigma that may be attached to using some of these programs, or even just having these more authentic conversations in the workplace are starting to dwindle a little bit more. And really just it's inspiring to see that more and more leaders are talking about it. We were at an event yesterday in Montreal, and one of the leaders for the global asset management department was saying very openly that he sees a counselor, and his children see counselors, and they love our program, and they love the fact that we have so much support for mental health. At BMO, we have $7,000 per person, fully
Wow.
paid for mental health services. And so that is something not only per employee, but their dependents, their spouse. And so there's nothing to hold you back really from being able to get that help that you need to either feel your best, feel your best personally, professionally, bring your best self to work, but also even just to be proactive in the next year or so. Our focus is going to be more around thriving versus surviving. So being proactive versus reactive. So really sort of continuing that journey of amplification through the organization to try to help people be more knowledgeable about the services that are available to them to support them. It's a huge investment on the part of BMO to be able to offer not only the 7,000, but all of the services that we have invested in through EAP and Headspace, and really ensure that they're using them. I mean, at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's something that is part of your total rewards package. So we want you to use it. We want to see those rates going up, because we know that people are still feeling that burnout. It's not gone away, unfortunately, even though we're sort of past the pandemic era. It's still such a strong feeling of being just emotionally burnt out. And more people are just sort of not in that space of thriving. They're still just sort of like everyone's just still in that survival mode. And so, how do we look at what our employees are feeling, and how do we kind of turn that around so that people are feeling very much supported, very much like, BMO has my back, not just as an employee, but as a whole person, a holistic picture of, it's not just Amy 9 to 5, it's also the 5 to 9 as well. Like, we're all just one person, and we can't be expected to be at our best when we're not feeling our best. And so it's really
Exactly.
trying to weave that into the fabric of our culture at BMO.
Now, so Amy, how do you, when you talk about amplifying the message, how does, so somebody's working at the branch, how do they hear about these programs? How do you get them engaged and interested, even if they do know about them? How do you get them engaged?
Yeah, that is sort of an ongoing opportunity and challenge that we've faced. And I think most employers who have people who are
They
not
do.
necessarily office workers or desk based. So we call them the deskless population and the customer facing population, where they are frontline, and they are the ones, taking a lot of brunt of, unhappy customers, or just people in general that are also not feeling their best, and may at times sort of take it out on people in the front lines. And so we've looked at what works, what doesn't work. For the majority of our people in office, we're able to communicate with them either through email or articles on our internal website, BMO Central. But for those that are in those roles, it's a huge challenge. And so what we've done, and this is maybe a little bit of a sneak preview of what would be in our next award application next year.
All right.
But what we've done is really look at taking it back a bit. Like, we're all about the digital focus is great, but sometimes you need to maybe go a little bit old school, step back a bit from being so digital. We're inundated every day with emails coming in, different things trying to get our attention when we're at work. And so what we've done is focused more on getting to where people are, meeting people where they're at, whether it's where you're at on your wellness journey, where you're at in the space physically, and really trying to connect with people on a smaller, more local scale. And through that, we've tried to partner more closely with both business leaders and people that help to influence
Mm,
things that happen in the branches. So, for example, we've been sort of doing the tour of the conference circuits and going and speaking at different annual leadership conferences so we can talk to leaders that oversee those branches about the importance of integrating wellness and employee well-being into their own teams. And so, really, sort of starting at the top and building out that strategy, we've started a wellness roadshow. And so, what that means is it's our team physically going out because we've had great success with our events in our bigger hubs, like Toronto. We had our Mental Health Awareness Month conference, our first ever conference there, which was amazing.
I was
And we
there.
did,
Yeah, it was great.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
I was
yeah, it
so
was
happy to have you
fabulous.
there. And in Chicago, we did a smaller, similar event where we had an executive panel. And really, the magic in that is having people, even executives, to share their own personal stories, some challenges, journeys around where they're at with their own mental health, their families, things like that. And that's where people just feel so connected, and they think, okay,
Yeah,
if that person can share and they're like the head of business banking, then that's something that they feel connected to, and it just feels like such a genuine and authentic conversation. And so we've traditionally only been able to focus on Toronto and Chicago hubs, and now we've looked at, okay, where do we have more populations outside of those areas. And so we've been piloting this roadshow, but so far it's been very successful in getting out and meeting the people and just going to where they're at. So we've done Calgary, we've done Vancouver. I just mentioned earlier that we were in Montreal and Ottawa this week. We'll be doing a full French session in Montreal in January, and then that's our Canadian pilot, and then we'll be moving down to the US to some of our locations down there. And so
nice.
it's really the feedback so far has been so encouraging and so positive, and just like, wow, like no one's really come to visit us out here, and it's just great to see people from head office and that you actually care about my well-being. And so just to be there in person to make that connection to people just goes a long way, because sometimes people feel a little bit removed, remote, and sort of like a satellite office. And it just really has been such a positive experience to be able to get out and meet with different colleagues across the country.
Yeah. I think that's great. And it does send a message, to people that you do care. And $7,000 per employee, that when I calculate, multiply that by over 50,000, 55,000 employees, that is a huge investment. I think that's a very strong message that you're sending to everybody that works at BMO, that this is important. And so your strategy for 2025 was bigger, bolder, broader, and that
Mhm.
includes sort of, how you're reaching audiences. But what else are you doing differently? What else did you do differently this year that maybe you haven't done in the past that you've implemented this year that you found was really successful?
So one of the big things within the BBB strategy, as I call it,
I love that.
um,
BBB.
BBB is our conference. So I'll touch a little bit on that. And when we looked at that, I sort of, every idea starts with a little grain, and you're sort of like, wouldn't it be great just to bring people together in person, because it's that experience, and people remember how you made them feel. They don't necessarily remember all of the details, but if you sort of give them that experience of the day of like, wow, BMO cares about me so much that they let me take, 3/4 of a day to invest in my wellness and to be here today and to have just like that connection with other people, and hear from amazing speakers. That day, honestly, I knew it was going to be great. I didn't know it was going to be so magical. And it was just such an amazing experience to be part of, to have these speakers up there. And it's funny because I had, Kleenex up at the front for one of our speakers, which I ended up needing. But everyone's feedback after was like, you need Kleenex on all of the tables because people were like, I was using my sleeve. And
Yeah.
so it's just made people, just feel so special and connected, and to be able to be together and just sharing this day in a positive, a psychologically safe space where people can have these discussions and see these leaders up on stage sort of sharing their journeys, and the different speakers that we had throughout the day, as well as having all of our vendors there, like having the EAP there on site and headspace to answer questions in the moment. We had Organica giving out like all kinds of free samples, and we had our recognition platform team there to talk about how recognition ties into making people feel good and your overall well-being. And so part of that, the bolder part, is where we're taking that idea of just like having those bold conversations, being very brave in the type of things that we're doing, like bigger, blowing up the events that we're doing. And we've done smaller events where we've had maybe, 30 to 50 people come into a room and hear from a speaker. And we were able to have 150 people in this day. Our next conference will be 300 people. And it's just such an amazing opportunity that, BMO is allowing us this space and this investment to be able to host this type of event for our employees. And we're
Yeah.
in the process now of planning the next one, and I can't wait for all of that to come together.
Well, I remember being there and listening to that story, and I too needed a Kleenex, and it was someone who was talking about their cancer journey, and I'm sure all of us know somebody that is affected by cancer. In fact, I have a friend who's going through chemotherapy right now.
Mhm.
And yet I have another friend who works for another organization, and she didn't tell anybody that she was going in for cancer surgery because she was so afraid of the stigma or that she might be fired, or I don't know, but she felt very, very afraid. And so I think by having even that person get up at a conference and talk about how they were supported through their cancer journey and what happened to that person I thought was very profound. And I think what people maybe are missing the point. We think we have to do all these strategic things and you do a lot of strategic things. But just having a venue, just having a container where people can share stories, it gives permission for other people to say, okay, then maybe I can share my story and get the support I need from my organization. Because most people really kind of want to jump in and help you when they hear your story.
Yeah.
They're not going to jump in to stigmatize you, but rather they want to be there to help.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's so unfortunate that some people feel that need to not, talk to their leader or talk to their team or whoever could support them going through that journey. Because it's not easy. I mean, I shared at the conference, and I know I've shared with you in the past, like being a caregiver for my own husband who's went through it last year, and unfortunately is we're back at the beginning going through it again this year.
Oh,
And
I'm
so
sorry, Amy.
it's difficult, right?
It's
But
hard.
the support that I've had from my leaders has been just so not only heartwarming, but just incredible. Like I was worried, like, or, had just moved into the role, and are they going to like reconsider the fact that I am qualified for this position, because some of my time is, obviously taken up with appointments and supporting my husband. But it's been the exact opposite. Like it's been like, take what you need, family comes first, being there to support your husband and your children, like that comes first. Like life comes first. Like you're never going to get
Yeah.
that time back with your family. And so I think it's something actually we're doing with one of our ERGs, employee resource groups. We're actually doing a cancer series now, and we have different um, colleagues throughout the bank coming and sharing their own experiences with going through the journey of either going through it yourself or being a
Yeah.
caregiver. And it's been incredible to connect with these other people that are going through a similar journey themselves, and seeing hearing great stories. Of course, you're going to hear some not so great endings, but to be able to create that space where we're all kind of in the same boat and we're all talking about it, we're all open about it. And for the most part, I have heard that people's leaders are just so supportive
Yeah.
of them, having to be away for whatever the time is. And to be honest, like it's actually a good um, business imperative, because I didn't have to take a full leave
Right.
from my role. I was able to, lean on my team a little bit heavier than I normally would, but still be able to keep my role active and keep working. And it's important to have that too, right? It's important to be able to take your mind off of other things. Maybe that's how I looked at it, by keeping up with all of the great work that's happening. As of course, it's a great time for our team with all of the work that we have on the go, but also sort of manage all of the things that I have on the go at home and personally. So
Yeah.
it's one of those
Yeah.
things I've just felt so grateful for, the support that I've had, in the workplace. But people actually care. Like, people are always
Yeah.
reaching out and like, you know, I just wanted to check in on you. How are you doing? Like, how are you really? I get that a lot. Like, how are you really? And it's just amazing to see how much people care about you.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear, Amy, that you're back there again. And of course, I'm wishing you and your husband and your family, everything for good results and good outcomes. And I know I've been in your shoes before, and I think what is really good is that there's this recognition of support for the caregiver as well, because we can often be there for people when they have a cancer diagnosis or any kind of health issue, but to also know that an organization is there for the caregivers, because that is a very, very difficult job. It's very, very demanding. And I think that's good. And again, we often think there has to be some sophisticated programs, but what I took away from what you just said is when people just say, "How are you? How are you really?" That's all it takes. That's all it takes to make people feel like they are human, that they are cared for. I have a leader that I'm coaching in a separate organization, and I know she's going through health issues, and I always want to make sure when I know that when she's getting tests done that I put it on my calendar to just check in. How did it
Oh,
go? How did the tests go? I just work with her, but it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a whole team of people or a strategy to just reach out and just say, "How are you?" And sometimes I think leaders are afraid to do that. They're afraid that, I don't know, that maybe they're intruding in somebody's privacy. What do you think
and I think
stops people from doing that? Yeah.
I think it's important to kind of ask, like,
Yeah.
one of the things I had put together last year was a manager well-being navigation guide, and it was based on a stat that I had heard um, at a well-being summit, and it said for 70% of people, your manager has more impact on your mental health than your family doctor or your therapist, and it's
That's right.
equivalent to your spouse's impact. And so I put together this guide for managers. And one of the things in there was just leading with empathy and recognizing that people are all different in how they deal with things. And so one of the questions is, do you want me to help you find solutions, or do you want me to just listen? And I think probably all relationships could benefit from
Yeah.
knowing that dynamic, but
Yes.
especially in the workplace, people expect different things, whether it's, the male female dynamic or things like that. Like, everybody is just very different in how they want to be supported. And so um, asking that question up front, like, are you comfortable sharing details, or would you prefer to keep things more private? And kind of from there, you can continue whatever cadence you've sort of determined with that person, because I have heard, a lot of people are very different in how they share, like
Yes.
keeping it in, not wanting to talk about it, not wanting to share personal details, whether they think it's going to, look bad on them or affect them in the workplace. I hope that's not the case, but some people are just very private, very, very private, and feel still that mentality of like, I should not talk about personal things at work. And if they're not comfortable, then you have to respect that space.
Mhm.
But I think you can kind of gauge through that initial conversation of like what will work best for that individual. And I think people know I'm a bit of an open book, and I always try to stay really positive. I think that's like a huge part of just how you recover. Like if you have that positive mentality around like, this isn't going to stop me. There's no one can put an expiration date on my life or my husband's life or anyone's life. You have to take control of your health, and you have to, do all of the things that you can do to be here for as long as you can for yourself, for your family, for everyone. And I've been very open in sharing my journey, and I actually just hope that it helps other people.
I'm sure it does. And I think I often ask people when they're going through something, what is the best way that I can support you?
Mhm.
As opposed to saying, well, let me know if there's anything I can do, because I find that then people never let me know if there's anything I can do. So I ask them specifically, what can I do? What is the best way that I can support you? And I wait until I hear an answer. And they'll tell me, well, if you could do this, that would be very helpful. And then I write that down and then I make sure that I'm doing that consistently. And I think you're right. I have some people I know who don't want any help on anything. And, so there's other ways though that I can support them if they tell me how I
Yeah.
can support them. So, and again, it just goes back to just having those conversations, doesn't it? Just have a conversation. Just
Mhm.
talk to people. It's okay. It's not the end of the world if we have some emotions or some connection, because we all have emotions and we all have, we all are human. So, Amy, this has been wonderful to speak to you. Thank you so much. And I'm wishing you really all the very best with your family. And I'm also wishing you a happy holidays
You
for
happy
people who
holidays.
are, yeah, we're going to be sending this out after the holidays. So I hope everyone had a good holiday if they're listening. But Amy, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing more of how you managed to win the Canadian Workplace Wellbeing Awards. It's been outstanding to listen to you. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Louisa, for having me. It's our pleasure. I mean, I know it's our second time winning, and we are just so grateful. I think it's a good story to share. We um did win the first year, and then we didn't win the second year. And that was a real opportunity for us to go back and look at what is the feedback. And we actually met with a couple people from the judging panel to get their feedback. And that was really, really impactful feedback that the judges shared with us. And then we took that feedback and put it into our third application. So we are just so grateful to be here and to be able to say that we're two-time winners now of this amazing award. So thank you so much for everything that you
Well,
do.
that's good because, our interest really is to improve well-being at work.
Mhm.
And so, we don't want to just say, oh, here, apply and whether you win or not. We actually are interested in sharing information and making sure that information, and it looks like it worked as
Exactly.
well. And all of that, I think, just improves the lives of, 55,000 people. You have an opportunity to have an impact on 55,000 people's lives, we bring our whole selves to work every day. As much as leaders think that we shouldn't, we do. That's the reality. And I have to say thank you to everything that you do for having such a huge impact on the people that work at BMO. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Amazing. Thank you, Louisa.